Well, can you believe it? It's episode 15 of the Good Contractor Podcast. They let us go for 15 episodes. This is crazy. Speaking of which, before I get to my awesome guest, hey, you're listening. Thanks for supporting our podcast and listening and downloading all those episodes. What would be awesome is if you're listening, leave us a review. Let us know what you think. That is super helpful in helping the podcast grow and, helping our love for the trades, move forward. So I have an awesome guest. I have Landon Nortune, who is the other half of Coffman Construction, who it was funny. It was like we were trying to get you guys both on at the same time. And then it was like, well, maybe we just do one at a time. And so I am super excited to have Landon on the podcast. We played a little bit of phone tag figuring it out, but you know what? That's how it goes. Landon's a busy guy. They say I'm busy. We're not even really sure about that. But Landon, welcome to the Good Contractor Podcast. How are you, man?
Thank you for having me. It's awesome to be here and good to finally be here because it was about probably 2 months ago we started talking, trying to get something on the books, and finally worked out, which is good.
Yeah. So let's start at your story because we got such a response of folks that were so interested in just, I guess, your journey, so to speak, just getting to where you are. But can you kind of start off with where you grew up, kind of, the very beginning of all of our stories we like to start with?
Yeah.
But, before you met Jarod and all that and your future wife, which we'll get to that cool story.
Yeah, it's an awesome story.
Yeah, but just kind of talk to, how you did you always dream of being in the trades?
No.
Did you? Okay. Yeah. Tell me all about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So my dad's a pastor. And so, my whole family, which is totally fine, was very college oriented and all that stuff. So that was my plan growing up. I was going to be mechanical / civil engineer. I was leaning more towards civil engineer. So I even did classes for it in community college. All that stuff. That was going to be my path. When I was in high school and middle school, I always said, I'm going to be an engineer because my mom, I am very blessed. I'm very good at math. And so my mom realized that at a young age and she's like, oh, what could he do? All blah, blah, blah. So that's what I thought I was going to do. But I was born in Colorado, that's also part of the cool story.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
This is okay.
Yep.
Got it.
And that I want to say that because there's other stuff that tie into the story later that's important. I was born and lived in Colorado until I was 6 or 7 years old.
Okay.
And then my whole family, we moved to the Bay Area of California. So 40 minutes outside of San Francisco.
Okay.
And grew up there for 14 years, 6 to 20. So majority of my life has still been in California. And I'm the youngest of 6, just like how Jarod has 5 siblings. I also have 5 siblings.
Wow.
So yeah, I love my big family. I also, and people get crazy whenever I tell them this, but my brothers or sisters are actually quadruplets. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's a fun thing to say and be a part of, honestly. I loved having quadruplets. I don't know if they loved it as much as I did because there's 4 of them, 4 birthdays, all on the same day. But I loved having, because my oldest sister is only 4 years older than me. So it's every 2 years we're separated. So my oldest sister is 29. The quadruplets are 27 and I'm 25. So it's very close age. So I still feel really close to my older sister. It was a blast. But that tied me and Jarod together immediately because we're both like, wait, I'm one of 6. You're one of 6. So that was kind of a fun little story.
Wow.
But when I was 14, my dad was a pastor and a superintendent of a school out in the Bay Area. And we were remodeling classrooms. And I was 14 years old. My dad's like, hey, you want to work this summer? You want to make some money? You can demo out. It was pretty much demo. I was doing nothing because I knew nothing. And I was working with my 2 brothers. And they lasted 1 summer. And I didn't stop. So they didn't like it. But I immediately found some joy in what I was doing back then. It wasn't like I loved it. Like, oh, I could see myself demoing a classroom for the rest of my life. That's not at all what I was thinking. My plan was still to be an engineer, but I enjoyed it enough to stick along, if that makes sense, like to ride it out.
100%.
So yeah, I started when I was 14 and, changing toilets, doing drywall patches, painting, demoing, lugging a lot of dirt and trash to the trash cans. So that's how it started. And then kind of was doing more projects and learning more rather than just being the lug to the trash. That's how it started. And then I was 18 and it was me. I was going in my college year, but I wanted to really try it rather than just doing remodels. So someone who went to our church was a lead project manager, a lead framer of a big construction company. Like he was like the number 3 guy of the whole company, and it was like 500 employees.
And you at this point had not started college yet. You were just preparing. And did you have a college in mind, or?
Yes, actually, that's a whole another crazy story. I pretty much got a full ride scholarship to a college to study mechanical engineering. Wow. I got a full ride. I had everything lined out. Started filling out paperwork, and started packing up 2 weeks before. 2 weeks before I was supposed to drive out to Oklahoma. That's where I was going to go, to ORU, Oklahoma, Oral Roberts University.
Wow.
2 weeks before, I just felt something like, this just isn't right for me. Like, I can't explain it to anyone. I felt like a loser at the time because I'm like, oh, I had this full ride scholarship to go to this awesome school, study mechanical engineering. And 2 weeks before, I'm like, it's not for me. There was something in my gut that I'm like, it wasn't for me. So that was really hard time. Yeah, that was a really hard time.
Yeah.
And my mom's like, well, you can't stay here and not go to college. So then that's when I went to community college. So I went to community college and still lived with my parents. So yeah, that was a whole ordeal.
What was it? Can you pinpoint, like, because that's, I mean, first of all, let me give you an applause. That's pretty commendable that, like, 2 weeks before you're supposed to show up, you at least had the foresight to go. Because look, here's the deal. We can all tell stories about somebody that went to college and it's like, yeah, I wasted 2 years of college money to figure out this is not for me and I'm not going to be successful here or whatever. What did you, now that you've had some time to maybe look back on it, can you pinpoint what it was? You're like, something is not right.
I knew I enjoyed construction a lot. I didn't actually think I would be like, and at that time I was full on like remodeling rooms by myself or with one other help, like that type of thing, or redoing the roof, fixing gutters, like doing a bunch of random maintenance stuff because I was pretty much a maintenance guy. Wasn't anything crazy. But I knew I liked it, but I had no idea that I liked it enough to not go to college for. So I didn't think it was that at the time. There was just something, and I'm obviously, I've mentioned that my dad's a pastor. I'm a Christian. I just felt like a sense about it. That I'm like, I feel like this is not the path that me personally is supposed to take. I know it's a great path for a lot of people, but I also am an encourager of telling people, like, it's not everyone's path. You don't have to just go to college to get a paper. Like, it's different for everyone. Obviously, I'm not saying drop out, play video games and live with your parents. That's not what I'm saying, but it's the same thing where everyone doesn't fit in a mold, and that's okay. And I was all my siblings have bachelor's degree. 2 of them have master's degrees. And I'm the only one with a lousy just GED from high school. That's all I have. So I get a little bit of crap from my family sometimes, but it is what it is.
Hey, it sounds like it all worked out doing what you love.
Yes. And I do love it. So there was just a sense about it. And I felt weird at the time because I had this opportunity to go to an awesome, prestigious school, have pretty much a full ride. It was like I was paying like taxes and fees, like that was it, like very minimal. And then I went to community college, and people who knew I was like, who I went to high school with, who were also going to community college, were like, hey, wait, I thought you were leaving. I was like, yeah, and it felt awkward, and I felt bad, like, and I felt like, did I make the right decision? And then obviously with some time, I realized I definitely made the right decision for me, for sure.
When talk about continuing, because you were saying that there was a connection there to somebody at your church that was, and were you at this point going to community college, and then kind of you said, okay, now this opportunity arose for me to kind of continue what I've enjoyed doing thus far?
Yeah, so I feel very blessed and lucky. My first ever house I ever built was Napa Valley, overlooking the whole Napa Valley. This house had a vineyard in the backyard.
Wow.
We could go and grab a grape, pop it in. It was It was a crazy
Landon's
view.
like, everything else from here is going to be a disappointment.
But then I moved to the mountains, and now we get these crazy views of the mountains. Yeah, and we saw hot air balloons every morning go up. It was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, you have been you're hitting all the scenic places. It's like,
definitely.
I love it. So yeah, talk about that. So now community college, and
yeah,
so this was your first house. How did you make that connection? Who was that connection with?
His name was Renee. Awesome. One of the best framers I've ever and will ever know. He's an amazing guy. He was from Nicaragua, came here on a boat with $100 in a pocket. Just crazy story. Awesome guy, great family, an amazing worker, and really smart. And so from day one, when I asked him at church, because he went to our church, I was like, hey, is there any way I can do like a summer? Just try it out, try to learn from you. And he was in the stage where he really wanted to teach people, because people on his crew didn't really want to learn. They were just framing. They're like, nope, I can do studs together. That's all I want to do. Just tell me where the studs go and I'll nail them in. So he wanted to teach someone. So I got under his wing and he taught me as much as he could. And I knew nothing about framing a house at that time. I was 18. Knew nothing. And he kind of took me under his wings, taught me how to read plans. He gave me plans the first day. He said, yes, of course. And he gave me the plans to the house. And I think you could ask my mom or whatever, but I was in my room for 3 hours just looking at the plans and remembering the dimensions. And then the next day we go out and we're laying stakes, because we did everything from the foundation to the siding, everything. So I had a lot of concrete work at that house, and I feel grateful for it, because now I have learned multiple steps of a house rather than just framing. And so I remember the first day he was like, all right, let's lay this out. And he was like, what's this dimension? And I was like, it's 4'11". He's like, okay, let me go look at the plans real quick. Looked, oh, it was 4'11". And then eventually by the end of the house, he realized that I was studying the plans and being able to remember how at least the basic blueprint was. And so that first day is when I was sold that I loved that job.
For all of you that don't have a photographic memory, Company Cam is for you. If you're Landon and you have a photographic memory, you don't need it.
I just studied. I don't have a photographic memory at all.
That is wild. So let me back up to one thing real quick. What when you started doing some of this stuff, because obviously, like you said, you had a mind for math and all that, but when you started doing this stuff, what was it about framing, or what was it about home building, or what was it about general construction? What was it that you really, really liked and kind of took to and wanted to say, oh, teach me, take me under your wing, teach me all this. I want to learn what, and is that the same thing that has stuck to this day, or have your passions even grown in different areas? I'm always curious what that one spark was. I talked to, Ashley Smith was our first one, and, she was doing something completely different. And then she's up on a roof for the first time with God knows who. And she says, I was like, I don't know. I never thought I would do this, but I'll be back tomorrow. This is cool. Was there a moment like that for you in this progression before you got hungry, saying, teach me, I want to learn?
Not really. It was kind of that first day. It was I took the plans home myself. I was intrigued. So then I studied, and then being able to have more knowledge of what the plan set was made me feel like I was more invested in what we were doing that day, which made me feel good. I'm not just standing around, tell me what to do. I want to be invested. That was my whole thing. I always want to be invested in whatever I'm doing. I try my hardest at whatever I do. Sometimes I fail, but that it is what it is at that point.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay, you do your first project. He's obviously impressed. You're remembering dimensions. Where do you go from there? How does your career kind of develop from there in your learnings and all that?
Yeah, so we framed that house, and it was a beautiful house, huge house, multi-million dollar home. I wish I remembered the address so I could look it up on Zillow, because it was a beautiful home. But from there, we had other jobs. And then the next job we had, I didn't like as much. So I realized I didn't want to do that forever. We were doing retaining walls, 100-foot retaining walls in Oakland, California, holding up this house. All we did, the house was already built. We were just doing retaining walls. And I said, I couldn't do this every day for my life, but I'm glad I at least learned how to set forms and learned how concrete kind of works. But every day at that job, my back was hurting, and I was like, I couldn't I couldn't do this forever. So then I realized at that point, man, I did just love framing that much.
Yeah.
Like it was just a absolutely blast. My first home, just trying to learn it and suck in as much as I could. And you asked a question. You said, "What do you like most about the job?"
Yeah.
For me, there's two things, and I love both of them probably equally. But one is after a long day, you see progression immediately.
Yes.
I can't explain how I feel, but after a good day and standing walls, there's no better feeling. It's the craziest thing. And if you haven't done it, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you ever get the opportunity to do one day, I know you would feel that feeling. But that feeling is amazing. And number two is problem solving. I absolutely love, if there's a problem, what's the best and cheap and easiest way to fix it? And then when I find it, I feel like I did it. I solved a puzzle. And I was a big puzzler when I was a kid, so maybe that has something to do with it. But
yeah, that is neat. So tell me, as we're recording this podcast, how old is Landon Nortune today? How
I
old
am 20. Today? I just turned 25.
Wow. Okay. And at this point, after you've done your first house, and you're doing certain things in Oakland that you're like, I don't love it, but it's good to know. How old are you then? So we have a kind of a chronological timeline of where you're at.
I think I was just 19 or 18 or 19.
Got it.
Now, at that time.
We're getting close to that moment where, as Jarod says, oh, what's with this COVID thing? When was that? Kind of how long were you doing what you were doing then before that COVID thing happened, and you find yourself in a state that says, hey, what you're doing is not essential, you're out of a job? When was that?
It was two years and like 4 months is what it was. So I was working with that one company, which I loved working for. Awesome boss, awesome guys. I was on an all Spanish speaking crew. I was the only gringo. That was it. So I picked up broken Spanish. I got pretty good at construction Spanish, but now that I haven't used it in 4 years, it definitely has gone away a little bit.
Yeah. Wow.
So two and a half years pretty much.
Man. So talk about that time period. I mean, are you literally on a job and you get called off and it's like, we can't finish? Or were you idle at the moment? Like, what was happening when you found out?
We were on a job. I wish I remembered what job it was, because we did a lot of small jobs, and I don't remember quite what job it was, but it was pretty much on that Friday. On a Friday, the last Friday we worked, one of the guys was saying that, and I got this in Spanish, so maybe the translation isn't great, but something like, yeah, my daughter's not going to school on Monday because of this disease.
Oh, wow.
School already canceled before we even got canceled. So they're like, oh, it's only for 2 weeks though. Like, that's how it started. You remember that. It was like, oh, lockdown for 2 weeks. Ah, psych. A month and a half. Whatever. It just kept changing.
Sure.
But then I heard them saying like, oh yeah, all schools, or my daughter's school at least, is not working or not going to school on Monday. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I think on Sunday, I got a text from my boss. Hey, we're not working tomorrow. I'll let you know when we're able to work again. And so I did some small stuff, like I saw him here and there, obviously with trying to do the best COVID, whatever.
Yeah.
I went over to the house, talked to him. He was also, I probably shouldn't be talking a whole bunch about him because I don't know how much he wants me to say, but he was going through cancer at the time. So I wanted to go check in on him, and I, went to his house. We were outside in his backyard, whatever. Talked with him, just chatting with him, kind of talking about life. And he became one of my really, really good friends, I would say. And he was 55 years old, had 2 daughters, a wife, but super awesome guy. And so went over to his house on like a Wednesday or something like that Wednesday when we weren't working. He's like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not even working. And all these things. He's like, everyone in the entire company is not working. I was like, interesting. And so just waiting, and it was a month and a half. That I didn't work. And they kept not working for another couple of weeks because I moved to Colorado. I was like, screw it, I want to work. So I moved to Colorado during that time because of COVID, but I would have never left my job because I loved it to come to Colorado,
And so the Colorado connection, aside from you being born there, as Jarod told the story, was, hey, they're building this house. You need work. This is going on. Was there, on your side of the story and from your perspective, was it the familiarity of Colorado in addition to opportunity, I guess, is the question?
Yes, and I'll have to say we visited Colorado during Christmas time in 2019 to see my grandparents, or at least just my grandpa at the time. My grandma already passed, but my grandpa, my both sets of aunts and uncles. So I had aunts and uncles out here. I had cousins out here. I had my grandpa out here, and we used to visit all the time. So it always felt like a second home. But that Christmas, I remember vividly, my uncle, the one that we built the house for, he showed me the plans to the house. He's like, "Oh, what do you think?" And I was like, wow. And I didn't say this to him. I didn't say this to even my mom. I didn't say it to anyone. I thought to myself, it would be so cool if I can get an opportunity to build this house for my uncle. Sure. You know, like I just thought, I was like, oh man, it would be so cool to build this home. One, it's a family, it's my family, and it was a sick house. So it was like a double whammy. I was like, not only can I build it for my uncle, but I would also be able to, build it. I was like, that's not going to happen. I told no one that. And it was crazy how then my uncle, because he asked me questions about it. He's like, hey, what do you think about this? Because he knew I was building homes. He knew I wasn't the guy to make the calls. He was just asking me. And then I got a call I got a text from my uncle on a Thursday that, whatever, the month and some change in, on a Thursday afternoon saying, hey, the people who are building my house might be looking for extra framers. Would you be interested? If so, you can live with us for the first year if you want to, or come out for the summer. You can live with us, no rent. At the beginning it was no rent, but no rent. You can come out, frame our house, and then you can go back when school's about to start. Because the plan was to go back to community college for my third semester or third year or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
And I got John's number in that first text, and I talked to my mom a little bit. I was like, I think I really want to do this, and it gets me out and work, because we were just literally pent up in the house for a month and a half in California. And I know people who aren't from California, it was crazy. It was insane. Like no one was on the streets. Even like if you had to go to the grocery store, it was bonkers. We were literally locked in our house for a month and a half. It was pretty much what it was. So then I started packing up on that Thursday. Me and my mom drove out here because she obviously has her siblings out here. She's like, oh, I'll go to Colorado. I love Colorado. See my family, all that stuff. We drove out here, got here on a Monday, and I started working.
Wow. Yep. And this is how you meet, not John, but not just John, but Jarod.
Yep.
And it seems like you guys clicked right away. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate, because I came from obviously a Spanish-speaking crew, which I loved, and all the guys were super cool and honestly nice, and they wanted to teach me as well. But it went from that to people my age and people who I could actually see becoming buddies with outside of work. It was an immediately different crew. So that was immediately different. I'm like, wait, people are my age? Like, because even in California, not many people my age were doing it. Like, I was still kind of not the norm at all. So coming out here and there's like, oh, there's 5 best friends framing a house. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it immediately intrigued me, and it was definitely easier to be able to communicate and talk and have fun, just with the language barrier.
And I heard you guys found a common vibe and like, hey, we skateboard on our lunch breaks.
Yeah, that's what my uncle said, because he knew I was a skater. Obviously, I think you can kind of see the skateboards. Yes. I skated in California for several years, and I loved it, but I didn't ever do it at work. Obviously, I did it outside of work, and then my uncle's like, they even skateboard at lunch. I was like, what? So yeah, it was. And then I remember the first day they were skating at lunch, and they're like, did you bring your skateboard? Do you skate? I was like, I do actually. I've been skating for a long time.
That is wild.
The next day I brought my skateboard.
Talk about a small world. It's just amazing.
Yep. I'll tell you even something that's even smaller.
What's that?
World. So you know how I said I lived here for 6 or 7 years?
Yeah.
So I went to kindergarten, I went to preschool, I went to first grade out here, and then in second grade we moved.
Yeah.
On the first week, he never said anything, but David Roberts, this kid, or this guy, man, whatever, he was on the crew, and he was like, oh, how old are you? I was like, oh, 20. How old are you? He's like, oh, 20. Like, we were both the same age. I was like, oh, how interesting. And then the next week we were hanging out on a Friday, or 2 weeks, I think we were hanging out on a Friday. And he goes, "Did you go to Platte River Academy?" I was like, or he said, "Did you move to California when you were in second grade?" And I go, "Yeah, I did." He's like, "Did you go to Platte River Academy?" It's like, "Yeah, for kindergarten and first grade." He goes, "I knew it was you. We were in the same class, same grade." And he remembered me. I sadly wish I do remember him, but apparently I made him pee on a tree when I was in first grade and all these things. He has all these
what
stories.
Great memories.
I know. It's crazy. Talk about photographic memory. That, yeah. David, it's like, so that was mind blowing that I was like, I went to school with someone in my crew now.
And then you end up, so, okay, let me back up one quick. So you're out there and you're working, and you gave me the impression, like, I don't know if this is long-term, I'm just out here to work on this one house, and now you form a relationship with these guys, but you're probably still in your mind going, it's really cool that we get along and that we connect, but I'm here to build one house. When did it go, hey, I may just stay here?
Honestly, really soon. Like, and even like my siblings, because some of my siblings lived at home when I moved to Colorado.
Yeah.
And they all said, when I left the door, they said they all were talking, and they're like, he's not coming back. Like, they all knew the second I left. But I also, as a kid and in high school, I always told people, like, oh, like, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know. I want to be a father. I want to be a husband. And I want to eventually take my kids and live in Colorado. Those were like the three things that I always wanted. Like, set in stone, I knew that's what I wanted. I didn't know what I was going to do for work or timing. I always thought I was going to move to Colorado when I was like 40, had a couple kids, married, maybe raise my kids here, like move here when we have kids. And then it happened when I was 20 and single.
Wow. It's one of those things. It's like you set something in your mind and it just, you find your way there one way or the other. That is really cool. So really soon you realize, hey, I'm staying for more than just this house.
The summer. Yeah. It was supposed to be just for the summer. I was going to go back to start my semester in college. And I think a month in, I was already like sold a week, maybe at the end of the first week. I was like, yeah, I'm staying. The big thing is I did take a pretty big pay cut to move out there. I got a $5 pay cut to move out there. Obviously, California's more expensive, so I understood it. And I was living with my uncle, so I was like, whatever, it's just for the summer. I'll take a pay cut, 3 or 4 months, whatever. But it was probably the first week where I'm like, I think I'm probably going to stay here. I didn't know the logistics because I was still living with my uncle. I knew that wouldn't be able to last a long time. All that jazz wasn't figured out. But I probably called my mom a month and a half in. I was like, hey, Mom, I think I'm going to stay. And she was devastated, obviously, because I was her youngest son, which I understand. And I was, I think there was 4 of us kids at the home at that time. And so then I left. That means there was only 3. So it just, I knew it hurt. It was hard on my mom, but I was like, this is what's right for me.
Yeah. So now you got to figure out logistics. And there's 2 components to this is full-time job, place to live, and then you end up meeting your future wife. Walk me through ironing all those 3 things out.
Yes, it was a little weird at first, which I understand because I am older than her, and I'm 4 years older than her.
Okay.
So that whole situation was, at first she was dating someone. So she was dating someone, and then I was hanging out at the Friday night groups and hangouts and all that stuff. And I never was like, I'm going to go after her or all these things. But we started talking a little bit, just more like as a whole friend group. Like it wasn't like individual. Yeah. And then I remember one day after church, Jared and Kate had a meeting after church and they were going to take Laura home because she drove with them or whatever. They're like, hey, could you just go get lunch real quick with her while we have this meeting? I was like, yeah, of course. So we honestly, that was the first day we actually like talked one-on-one, and she was really struggling with, a bunch of things with her boyfriend at the time. And I had a very similar situation. So I just was honest with her and I'm like, hey, I dealt with this from the other side. I would do this, or this is what I wish happened to me, or whatever, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that it was only advice at the time. And then just through a couple months, 2 months, I think within 2 months, we were being more serious and talking. And so, but she was younger at the time, so everything was ran through her parents. And like, I was trying to be above board, above waters, all these things, because I knew she was important and worth doing all those hard things and sacrifices at the beginning because I knew that it was at least going to be something. And then dating for a couple months, then I realized obviously she was the girl I was going to marry.
So you get to know Jarod, then you become Jarod's brother-in-law.
Yep.
Talk about just you guys and your relationship, and also what I think is so cool is it truly is not just like a friendship and that turned into family, but family business. You know, I saw your lovely wife, and she's out there in the middle of it with you guys. You guys are all kind of doing it together. Can you just talk about that relationship with the Coffman family, and now you're a part of it and they're a part of your family, and just that dynamic of it all happening so fast? What has that been like for you?
It's been really awesome, just in general. It's been great, because it was good that me and Jarod became really close friends before me and Laura started dating. And that helped, that we had a friendship, and it wasn't like awkward brother-in-law or awkward, oh, this is what my sister's dating, you know? So it helped a lot that we were friends. And obviously I had a lot of conversations with John. He would come out on the site. I would talk with him. So I had a rapport with him, and then it just kind of kept growing and growing. And now they're my in-laws, and I call mom and dad. They feel like another set of parents. They have been really awesome in general and very welcoming as a family. They all got scared at the first family gathering. The first family gathering I was joined at, Laura's like, it's a big family where there's whatever. At the time, there was 24 of us or whatever. So yeah, I'm from a big family too. It's like that. I have our house too. And all the Coffmans were like, no boyfriend has done this well on the first day of meeting everyone.
You're like, I got it.
Yeah. I'm comfortable in large settings, especially with family.
Now you guys are rocking and rolling and moving forward. And tell me, like, what does the future hold for you guys? What I thought was so cool, and I want to let me back up actually and touch on this. I think what's neat is when I did the interview with Jarod, like I was saying, the response I thought was so cool. But from young people that are in the trades, because like you said, even 5 or 6 years ago, or 10 or whatever, there may not have been as many people that are 25, 23, 27 years old.
Yeah.
Or as many, I should say.
Yeah.
That are in the trades in general, whether they're in framing or general construction or plumbing or roofing or siding or whatever. And now I feel like, and just judging by the engagement that we saw to Jarod's episode, I said it's off the charts how many young people are not just interested in it, but involved in it, passionate about the trades. I guess let me lead the witness a little bit. Do you and Jarod kind of recognize with not just what you've done just being in the trades, but what you guys have done with the YouTube channel, what you guys have done with social, to inspire other young people to find that passion and say, hey, this is cool. This is something I really want to do. Has that kind of hit you guys yet?
I don't know how necessarily Jarod feels. I don't feel like we're making an impact. You know, I still feel like I'm watching Awesome Framers and Joe, you know, the Canadian Carpenter, all these people, and I'm like, oh, dude, we got to try that out one of these days. You know, like I'm still learning and I'm wanting to learn, and I still look up to those guys, all those guys. But it just feels like we're having fun. Like how the Instagram started, I was just like, let's just post whatever. Like we do cool stuff. We work at cool jobs. Let's just start it. And then we're like, okay. So it was a bunch of random couple videos. And then the first one went viral. And then we're like, oh, wait, that's kind of crazy how many views this one has. It was like we were getting like 1,000, 2,000, 1,000, 2,000, 1,000, 2,000.
What? I'm always curious to ask people this. Because I find that it's really fun when people that are passionate about something get something that goes viral. Because to me, there's a connection. It's like, oh, I'm passionate about this.
Yeah.
And they're interested in it. There's a connection.
Yeah.
What do you think made that first one go? Like,
it was a dumb video. It was a dumb video. It was a funny video. It was... Looking back on it, it was like, okay, we wouldn't post this now. Maybe we would. But it was just something dumb that we were having a router. I was routing out a window, and there was a big pile of sawdust. I don't know if you've seen it, but it was a long time ago. It was 3 years ago. And we were kind of like, oh, I get so much sawdust in my mouth at all times when I'm routing, especially above my head. So Jared's like, we should make a video, like a funny video about it. I was like, okay. So I literally got a chunk of sawdust, and I know It's not good because there's glue in it. I know,
Yeah.
but I just like swallowed a big chunk of sawdust, and then Jarod was gonna be like, "Okay, when it gets above your head, I'm gonna ask you how it's going, and then I'm gonna spit out all the sawdust or whatever." So I get to like hear, and he asked me, and he goes, "It wasn't good enough." I was like, "You're gonna make me do that again?"
Again?
So I went to the same pile, and I did it again.
Oh no! Not only did he have to do it once, he had to do it twice.
That's right. So it was a funny video, and we like to be ourselves. And the first like when we started posting, it was never like, oh, we're gonna become like this guy or this guy. Never once. We were just like, screw it. We do a lot of cool stuff. May as well post it. Like that was our initial thought. We never thought anything would come from it. So it's been really cool to see it grow for sure. But I definitely don't take credit for more kids coming into the trades. We always talk about it, and I always say like this is why I love it. And there's more, like what I was saying at the beginning. They're trying to do a cookie cutter. No one fits into that cookie cutter mold except for those specific people, So it's okay to try it. I'm like, one summer, just try it. That's how I started. And then I fell in love with it. So it's like, you don't have to be fully committed and not go to college or do these things, but it's a summer. When you're graduating high school or even in the middle of college, you have summers free. Might as well try it. What's the worst that can happen?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. I always say, it's a you don't have a ton of time to see what you love, so you might as well try it and find out.
Exactly.
What's beyond social? I know you guys obviously growing in this business, and I know, John obviously creating it, and then you and Jarod kind of being that next generation. How do you guys look at the future of Coffman Construction? I guess when you guys are looking at the future and goals, is it about learning? Is it about, simply getting, I know everybody wants to be better, right? Every project they work on, they want to be better than the previous. But what long-term, when you say, 10 years, it'd be really cool if we blank, what would that blank maybe fit in with?
We want to start developing ourselves rather than building for some custom home guys or other builders. We are a full service general contractor, so we do a bunch of jobs where we are the GCs, but like we want to like actually build, develop, and then sell it or whatever we want to do with it. But then everything can be more in-house, and it goes, everyone's a unit. Like, okay, we have electricians, we just finished framing this house. So electricians are coming over, the same electricians that we've been using, and we're going to go start our next house. Like we want to develop. That's at least me and Jarod, we would love to do that. But even just custom homes and doing all these things that we're even doing now, I could see me doing it for 20 years, like there's not one day where I'm like, man, I hate my job. I've never once thought that, which I'm very appreciative because I know not many people feel that way.
That's so cool. Yeah, you're right. And it some people it takes, until they're in their 40s to find it, and what, I guess when you start to think about, hey, I want to do this for another 20 years or 30 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do you, even at 25, are there people around Coffman Construction or people that have seen your stuff that have wanted to be the next Jarod or Landon and work under you guys now? Do you see that next wave coming through? And have you had anybody, you're like, oh, this reminds me of me when I was, 19 years old. Is there anybody like that out there?
Of course. And I see that in our guys, and we talk about to them like, hey, I just want to see you trying. Like, you have a problem. Don't come to me and say, hey, I have a problem. Say, hey, we have a problem. Here's a solution that might work. Because then at least we see that they're trying, to push themselves into it. But if you don't even try at all, then it's like, okay, I'll just go fix it then. Like,
sure.
Yeah, I could tell you how to do it, but it's just a different mindset. And a lot of our hires now these days have come from the Instagram and YouTube.
Really?
Oh yeah. Most of them have actually.
Wow.
Yeah. We had one guy who messaged us on YouTube and was living in Nevada and moved to Nevada just because of us on YouTube and started working. He eventually left, which is fine. But yeah, it's pretty crazy how many people we've gotten just from Instagram, people wanting to work with us.
So then I guess, is it, I mean, hard to explain this question, but is it like sky's the limit from a social media standpoint? Like, where do you guys want to take that? And is it an education thing? Is it more, and I realize that more than one thing can be true at once.
Yeah,
but
totally.
Is it like we want to continue to take up our level of education the same way that we look up to people? Is it also, in addition, finding the next me, and is it all, just getting hopefully more young people interested in saying, hey, I can do this? I guess how do you guys look at the future of what you've built with that? Because that's impressive as well in itself, what you guys have built there.
Well, we appreciate that, obviously, but there's even people who want to work with us. That's been nice because we've had talks with other builders who are not on social media, be like, man, how are you guys finding guys? We literally are not looking for them, but they reach out, and then we give them a test run, see, and then okay, yeah. So that's not why we're doing it. It's a nice perk. And same with we've met a really nice and cool builder through Instagram, and we've built 2 homes for him. And now we just started another job this week with him, with that guy who found us on Instagram. And then another amazing home that was just a recommendation from a friend of the builder who saw us on Instagram. And I was like, hey, you should get these guys to build your new house that you're about to start.
Do you feel like that's something that maybe most people in the trades aren't taking? Because it's funny for me being at company camps, I see so many folks that are doing, different levels of social media. Some are doing a full-time landscaping business, and then they've got 6 figures in followers over here. I've got some that are running multiple companies and they've got 5,000 followers, and they're cool with that. They don't really, it's not about whatever. But do you see the ones that you're still kind of baffled, hey, we're not using you're not using social media at all to our advantage? How do you? Yeah,
I mean, we did, I don't know if you were there. I don't think you were, but we did a little presentation for Company Cam in Denver about social media. And me and Jarod were up there and we were just talking about it, and we're like, it doesn't make sense not to post your work, because if a homeowner or another builder or whoever wants to see you before they hire you, at least there's some work. Even if you have 10 followers, at least there's a repertoire of what you've done, what you've built. And that's just, then people kind of feel like they know you before they even met you, which is a good thing,
Sure. Yeah. I just wondered how many times you run into folks and it's like, hey, just do, get something up there. You're kind of, it wouldn't be good not to have anything at all. That's really cool that you guys have that the connection. I think the network, one of the things we talked about with doing this podcast is, and it's sometimes things start as a byproduct and then you realize, no, that's really the importance of this. And I said, I think it's interesting that when you create a network of contractors that aren't even in the same room, but if Landon listens to Paul, who listens to Caleb, who listens to Ashley, who listens to this person over here, then they're like, oh, I ran into that same thing and I never thought anybody else ran into that. Or I'm not alone in a success or a challenge. And I said, the byproduct of doing a podcast like Good Contractor, where I'm not selling a product, I have no interest in monetizing, you know what I mean?
Totally.
This is 100% about telling the story behind the work, not here's how to run your business better. But I find it interesting when I hear back from people that's like, oh, there's a connection there. And I see that same thing with what you're saying about, that's why I just wondered if you walked up to people and go, hey, I know you didn't ask for my help, but can I give you one piece of advice? You have nothing out there on this. You are great at what you do.
Yep.
Connect those two things. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I just am a big advocate. And I know it's hard. And sometimes me and Jarod make it a little harder than it has to be for the social media. But at the beginning, we were literally just recording stuff on our phone. Yeah. And just posting what we were building, what we did that day. That was it. And it was just something fun that we have. And now we have a record of the houses on our stories and saved them to, so now we can just go back and remember the good times at 12:06 or 12:10, the house I started at, or whatever. And it's just a fun thing to keep a calendar or memories of your job. I think it's fun. And it doesn't take that much time to upload a picture or video that I know for a fact you already have in your phone of your work. I take so much pictures of my work or just of what we're doing. It's like you can press post and be like, I thought this was kind of cool. Did this today. Like, it doesn't even have to be anything big.
Sure.
So it's just, I feel like it's easy. People make it harder than it has to be. It doesn't have to be hard because it's not, at least when we started, and even still now, we're not like doing it because we want to grow our fan base or all these things. That's not why we're doing it. It's a cool perk that has happened. But it's just as fun to post your work because we're proud of it.
Yeah.
Why not post it?
What do you, last couple questions here. What do you see as the future for young people in the trades? I mean, are you seeing, one of the things I've talked about each time in different ways is, at least for me, being north of 40, you know, growing up in the 1980s and 90s watching cartoons, we always joked like, well, anybody in the trades was always perceived as this versus not going to college. And that, to
I
me,
still think that's still there. I do.
Okay.
And maybe I get that because I get it from my family. I know that that's how they perceive it, which is fine. I love my job and I make a living. Me and Laura were able to buy a house. Like, I feel like me and Laura are doing good for ourselves. So I don't take it too hard or harsh, you know, but I still see that, at least in communities and families, that it's very much gotta go to college.
I was gonna say, what do you think breaks that though? Is it just showing that, hey, I did it, and this is success does not have to be written down in this way? Like, I guess what from your, because obviously, Landon, you and Jarod at your young age have done pretty darn well already, man. I mean,
thank you.
I mean, that's incredible what you guys have done. And I just said, I told Jarod at the end of our episode, I can't wait to see what you guys do next. What does it take that, in your opinion? Like, hey, look, I mean, everybody I've interviewed has had a different answer. You know, Chris Connie here in Lincoln has been like, oh, you can get the nice truck and the nice house doing this job without going this route. And sometimes you just he almost made it sound like you have to prove that. How do you think that gets done?
I think it's time. And when my brothers and sisters call, hey, can you fix my cable? I don't want to call a cable guy for $200. And I said, I could try. And it takes me 5 minutes and I figure it out. And then I save them $200. And they're like, oh, that's crazy that he knew how to do that. It's like, I didn't. I just tried. It was a problem solving. It's the same type of thing where I feel like their cable's not working. Let me try to figure it out, you know, and then I can figure things out. Maybe I can't figure everything out and I haven't been able to, but I love giving it the old college try.
But then we're back. We came full circle there.
That's right.
So we always ask everybody what makes a good contractor. And so it is time for me to ask Landon Nortune that question. In your mind, if you were going to describe a good contractor, what would you say to that question?
I would say someone who does love their job, love what they do, and I know this is going to sound weird, but love people. Because if you're going to be a contractor, you have to be able to communicate. And I feel like some people in the trades are hotheads or, you know, mean or douchebags or whatever. And that's a bad stereotype for everyone. So I feel like if you care about your job, you would want to be friendly and not even a fake facade, just generally asking, how's your day? Or all these things. And at least that's who I am as a person. I enjoy doing that. I enjoy saying, hey, how are you, man? Like I talked to the dumpster guy today for 20 minutes and he was just talking. And I just was asking like, hey, do you enjoy your job? Because I've been doing it for 10 years. Like I enjoy talking with people. And I feel like when people are just mean or a little scummy, trying to take things off the top or trying to add things on the top on the homeowners, it gives every contractor in the entire world a bad name. And I hate that. Because there's that stigmatism. It's like, oh, contractors running up the bill, you know, which happens on the job all the time. But if you explain things or are nice to people, they would understand it more than being like, sorry, you have to pay this or we're taking you to lien, like, or we're leaning your house immediately. It's like, you know, I feel like being personable and talking with people and liking your job, like actually enjoying your job, I feel like it makes a good contractor because then you love people, you love your job. Feel like you're going to make it work.
Yeah, I think, you know, I can talk about Company Cam in terms of like truth and transparency and how that makes it, you know, doing the right thing. But I think what's even doubly cool is doing this podcast. And I think, to your point, I think what also breaks the stigma is not just time, but time for more people like yourself and everybody else we've interviewed taking those things seriously, meaning great communication. Yes, all that is good, but being kind to people, treating people exactly how you'd want to be treated as a homeowner, thinking about all of this differently. I think over time, because like you said, you got a broad look at it. Like you're saying, if somebody does X, it affects all of us in the way we're perceived. And it's almost like saying, I'm already fighting uphill from an incorrect stigma anyway. Don't add to it by doing it. You know what I mean? And so
totally.
I think it's really cool that you have that 30,000 foot view of my actions could affect these 6 tradesmen and tradeswomen potentially by what I do. And so that's really cool. Landon, I had a blast.
So did I, John. It was awesome.
I'm so glad we finally got to do this, and I think all the phone tag was worth it. And
100%.
Yeah, man, I am just like I said, I'll repeat it again. I'm just so pumped to watch what you do and Jarod does and the Coffman family. I just think what you guys have accomplished at the ripe old age of 25 is absolutely remarkable. And I'm just a huge fan, man. I just can't wait to watch you guys. And I say we come back for another episode and we do like a recap and we bring Landon and we bring Jarod and we bring your wife, we bring John. Let's bring everybody in.
That would be awesome.
Like a Coffman recap episode.
That would be awesome. And I know they would all love that idea. So that would be really fun.
That would be awesome. Well, thank you so much, man, for being on.
Thank you, John. I really do appreciate it too. And it's fun talking. I just like talking, like I said earlier. So thanks for talking with me.
Absolutely, man.